How we doing, guys? John here, bringing you another video for the week, another discussion video, actually. I'm kind of enjoying these types of sitting down, speaking what's on my mind type of videos. I hope you guys are enjoying them too. If you are, let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, I'm on spring break right now, and I've got a couple things on my mind I just want to share with you guys, and I hope you guys are just, sit back, relax, and hear man ramble about a card game known as Cardfight Vanguard. So, what did I want to talk to you guys about today? So, last week, if you guys tuned in to the Final Turn Gaming stream, and if you haven't, definitely check that out. I'll leave a link in the description down below. But yeah, so I had an interesting discussion with Dave, my teammate, my friend, and, I was rambling on about premium in the current metagame right now, and he's really excited to build a premium Zorga. Right, so that is a deck that he's like, I really want to build that. It looks like a lot of fun, and the concept itself sounds really nice. And hopefully, when he does finally build it, we'll have a deck profile of it. It led to an overall discussion about various different types of decks that you can build using Overdress decks. Right, so examples being like aforementioned Zorga with things like Ramble, right? Or you can do things like the more popular ones being Greedon, maybe with something like Pale Moon or Dark Irregulars. Or something along the lines of, Barrow Magnus, of course, with Dark Irregulars. Or you can do things along the line of more wacky things, right? So you can do things like Bastion, using the Gancelot and Barkle to be a little more lenient on your grade 3s, and you don't have to rely on things like your grade 2s, and you can superior ride via those means. Or something along the lines, you can do things even wackier, like Murakumo, right? Murakumo with Overdress, being able to copy the Trickstar name via Murakumo effects, and then overdress on top of your random Murakumo cards because they have the Trickstar name. So that's really cool. Or, the more wacky, insane ideas, things like Final Rush Time Leap, right? So, being able to be at Final Rush and then incorporate things like Leonard, and then things like TikTok Worker, and then Leonard would be able to on-hit grab the TikTok Worker that you just put into the soul via his effect, and then be able to Time Leap again, and then just keep this multi-attack chain going and craziness. So like all of these decks sound like they're really cool in concept and really fun to play, but they're a lot harder to actually execute, right? So why is that? And why is it that D premium decks in general are just so hard to build? And I think there are a few reasons. So number one, of course, is the ride deck. So the ride deck itself was made to be an overall consistency buff to a lot of these decks. Examples being, of course, stuff like Bastion, who primarily runs nothing but grade 3s in order to be successfully doing Bastion's skill. If it weren't for the ride deck, that deck wouldn't be able to function at all. And in something like Premium, where the ride deck doesn't exist, it's near next to impossible to be able to play that deck to its fullest extent. That can be argued with a couple of things, but overall, it's a nightmare to run if you ever think about running it in the D premium metaspace. And then something like Nirvana, right? Nirvana relies on your Overdress cards, on Trickstar, on Virina, things like that. It's a lot harder to get stuff like Trickstar out without your ride deck. A lot of Overdress players, they like to start out on Trickstar to be able to get it into the drop zone, then ride Nirvana and res it. And if not, then they rely on things like the riding their grade 1 on top of their grade 2 in order to search their Trickstar to get things started. And for something in the premium metaspace, that might not always happen because you don't have the ride deck and you can't always ride the ideal grade that you want. Things like that make it increasingly hard. It can be argued that there are a couple of cards that don't necessarily need to rely on their ride deck, being Barrow Magnus, being Greedon, possibly Zorga, because Zorga just is all about Alchemagic and all about rezzing things from drop zones, so it doesn't necessarily need the cards from the ride deck to be able to function in a premium space. But for a lot of these decks, the ride deck is necessary, and without it, it becomes very hard to build in any sort of other metagame besides from Overdress. And that kind of segues into what I think the number 2 reason, which is a lot of these cards, they're archetype locked. You have things like Virina Urgar, who specifically needs the grade 3 Chakrabarti to be able to do its skills. So right off the bat, you already need one card to be able to play another card. And that kind of stinks, especially if maybe you want to ride a different type of grade 3 that synergizes better with the overall deck that you're building in general. So maybe for something like Murakumo, who would want to play the Overdress shenanigans, but would want to play Hyuga to be able to duplicate the names for for Trickstar, they can't do that because if they want to play something like Urgard, they need a Chakrabarti Vanguard, which is really sad. And then for something like Final Rush, if you ever want to incorporate Final Rush into your strategy, you need a Bruce Vanguard for a majority of your plays, or you need to be in Final Rush. In order to do that, you need to be on your Bruce Vanguard. So that itself is already detrimental because, oh, well then I can't play other specific types of cards that might otherwise benefit me because they're archetype locked. So that kind of leads into my next topic, or my next reason, which is the overall synergy with these Overdress archetypes don't have a high payoff when it comes to the premium meta space as a whole. What do I mean by that, right? So you could theoretically play the Bastion deck. You could theoretically play your Bruce deck, and you can theoretically play all of these Overdress decks, right? You can. It works in certain aspects. Eugene best deck. But in a lot of cases, the payoff and the synergy doesn't work as well, right? Synergistically, these cards work within their own archetypes or work within their own sphere. You can make them work. And if you do, it takes a lot of hoops to jump through in order to get them to successfully work in the premium meta space. And the payoff isn't always as powerful if you were to just run the archetype pure. Right? So maybe you can run Final Rush Time Leap, but why wouldn't you just run Time Leap by itself? You need to have the Bruce Vanguard, and why would you do that when you can just ride in Chronojet? And Chronojet gets you a gift. The plus 10,000 is a lot more powerful, or the plus 1 crit is a lot more powerful than having to wait a turn and then being able to do the skill. So that's one example. Another example can be something along the lines of Bastion, right? Okay, maybe you do run all these grade 3s. And then maybe, okay, you do something like Gold Paladins and you thin your deck to a point where you have nothing but grade 3s. But why would you do that? Why would you hinder yourself in the premium metasphere of taking out important shields or powerful multi-attackers for grade 3s that would be dead cards when you drive check them? Well, no, not when you drive check them, but when they go to your hand and they are played defensively. Whereas you could just play Gold Paladins by itself. You just play Gurgwit as itself. You get your Excel marker, you get a +1 draw from your Excel marker. There's more value in a gift marker than riding an Overdress card. So the power levels are there, and you can make it work, but why would you play a card in this level when you could play a card that's this level? So it's annoying in deck aspects like that, but it's understandable. Because if they were to make Overdress cards as powerful, if not more powerful, than premium cards, than V premium cards, then it would just completely blow everything out of the water and would make a lot of these cards irrelevant. It would get to the point where if you did make Overdress cards as powerful as premium cards, why would you invest into premium cards at all when you can just play your Overdress cards in the premium space? So that itself is another reason why, Bushiroad might not want to do something like that. And it would stink. It does stink for Overdress players who want to get into the game of premium. And they're like, all I have is my Overdress cards, but I want to explore the premium metaspace. Maybe a lot of my crowd is older Vanguard players and they like playing premium, but all I have is my Nirvana deck and there's not much I can do without investing into premium cards. And that itself is also kind of stinky too. They want to play in the premium metaspace, but premium as itself is a very hard game to get into. Necessarily, no. I mean, okay, it can be argued there are a few decks that if you have Overdress cards, they can work very well. So something like Eugene, right? Yep, that's actually a very easy deck to build, and you only need a few cards, maybe a handful of G-Guardians and a handful of Kagero cards, and a lot of them are just commons and uncommons. But that's just one outlier, guys. There are other cards that are increasingly harder and harder to buy right now, and would work really well for these Overdress cards. But because they work so well for other archetypes, number one, people are going to buy them for those archetypes, and number two, why wouldn't you just play for those more powerful archetypes anyway? This doesn't make any sense. So there are a lot of things going on as to why I think it's so hard to build. But yeah, I think those are my main reasons why Ride deck overall, consistency, archetypes, and overall the payoff and the synergy just doesn't work as well when it comes to these cards. There are a couple of outliers, I will argue, but for a majority of Overdress cards, they kind of fail in comparison because at the end of the day, some of them have really powerful effects, but a lot of them are just, you know, power bonuses here, plus 5k here, an additional check here, and those are all good, but there are more powerful versions of it that have already been printed in various different types of clans in the premium metaspace. I don't know. It kind of stinks. Maybe there are more creative people out there that can convince me otherwise. I hope there is. I am very excited to try and bring you guys and show you guys some really exciting D premium decks if I can, and show off what they can do. They would obviously be slower, but if they can go toe-to-toe with some of the big boys out there in the premium metaspace, that would just make things so cool. I will also say that if Bushiroad ever decided to make it kind of like a premium ruling where ride decks can be implemented in premium space, but only for Overdress cards, that would be really cool. It'd be a really interesting avenue to explore, and maybe something that they can implement in the future. I know also with things like dual clans that are coming out, from what I've seen at the current moment, they're not explosive and they're not detrimentally powerful, but they can get there, and it's something to keep an eye on. And, you know, who knows, maybe these types of cards can actually make it so Overdress cards do have a way to play in the premium metaspace. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed my rambling. It looks like it's gone on for a little bit longer than I anticipated, but that's okay. Hopefully chopping this up into a little more digestible piece for you guys. If you guys like this style of content, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, see you guys in the next video. Deuces!